Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's overview and scrutiny committee. The first item on today's agenda is apologies for absence, and I've got one from Councillor Oliver. Have we got anybody else?
It's all everybody else's presence.
That's great. Item number 2, minutes from the last meeting. Is everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting on page 1 to 12? Nick?
I think in the last bullet point on page 5, it says that Councillor Stewart highlighted the dangers of the use of e-scooters and e-bikes on roads. And I think we need to be clearer that he was referring to e-motorbikes rather than e-pedal bikes. I spoke to him afterwards and explained that to me.
So e-motorbikes.
Yeah. Terminology is a bit confusing because e-motorbikes don't have motors either, but we need to try to be clearer. Also, there's a typo. I'm halfway down that page. I think it's a typo. Talk about portfolios having regard to inadequacies and health. Doesn't mean inequalities and health.
Whereabouts is that, Nick? Sorry.
About halfway down the page, under 16.2, halfway through that first paragraph.
Right. Yeah.
Councillor Dale?
Page 8, second last paragraph from the bottom. It was suggested that the planning section should be reviewed. Can I say it was agreed that the performance of the planning section should be reviewed?
You wish to change that to it was agreed?
Yes, I think everybody here would recall that it was actually agreed.
Yeah, there's actually on the top of page 10, in the resolution, number 4, the report on plan performance, including the number of applications.
Sorry, I can't have that.
Sorry. In the resolution.
Yeah.
That item.
Yeah.
You picked up there. And
It should, yes.
And I contacted the officers the following day, and they assured me that the report will report to committee in November.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I missed that one. Sorry. Thank you.
Any others for the minutes? I have a proposer and a seconder for them, please.
I'll propose them, Chair.
Yes. The seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Item number 3, any members of disclosure of interests for today's agenda items? No. Perfect. Moving on to the forward plan of cabinet decisions, page 13 to 16.
Yeah, just to note there, but I just noticed that on page 14, I think it was Nick who at the last meeting about the food and feed safety and standards report, and that is better than previous years. We normally go to cabinet, I think, in September. It went October this year, and I checked with the officer responsible, and it was just because of people on leave and holiday and that sort of thing. There's no sense that it was invited.
Okay, thanks. So it normally goes part of the way through the year rather than.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Everybody happy? So moving on to the homeless and rough sleeper strategy, we've got Julie Stewart and Councillor Horncastle. So hand over to you good selves.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This was a report that was requested by members when we originally brought the homelessness strategy to be adopted and scrutinised. It was adopted in March and scrutinised in April. And I was asked to bring a report of any progression against the action plan. So this report with the appendix provides an update of the priorities that were identified within the strategy itself and the progression against that action plan. And one area that I would like to bring to the community's attention is the issue around temporary accommodation. I think this is an area that we're going to have to work on quite significantly over the coming months, because there has been a significant increase in the demand in temporary accommodation across the county, for various different factors, which includes the government's decision to try and make as many asylum decisions as possible, which, because of the people that we have placed in Northumberland, we are seeing an increase in the numbers of people who are receiving their decisions. We then have a duty to relieve their homelessness ahead of them being accommodated if they want to stay in Northumberland. And we are seeing a higher demand generally on the service for people who are finding that their current homes are not affordable. Fortunately, one area we're not seeing as significant as demand as we had expected is around the Homes for Ukraine resettlement. There are a lot of people still staying with hosts and not presenting as homeless, and they're trying to do a plan to move on. But we do have a higher number of people in bed and breakfast that we would normally expect to, and there's very few spaces left in temporary accommodation, if at all. So we are trying to move people through very quickly. The added factor is that where they're moving on to social housing, some of the social housing providers are taking a little while to get their voids turned around. So people are staying in temporary accommodation longer. One good thing is, though, that for our council-owned stock, we have a really good relationship with the new voids team leader, who is prioritising accommodation where people are sitting in temporary accommodation to try and get them moved out as quickly as possible and get them into their permanent homes as quickly as possible. So that's a good result. But that is one area that we're going to have to focus on over the next few months, because it is putting pressure on services. But I'm just open to any questions around the action plan, which does describe the progression within the last 6 months. If anybody has anything.
Paul, would you like to make any comment before we do it?
No, not really, just that, this came before us in April, so I think that's really just 6 months. So if you look at the progress that's been made, you could actually say there's not a lot of progress being made. Look at the time frame there has been. So it's something you can really come back to, but I've picked up on the points that Julie's just said, and with the government announcements and everything. So we do know what's happening, but 6 months isn't a lot of time for things to happen.
Yeah, would anybody like to ask Julie or call any questions?
Thanks.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just really, I come across people who have gone through the system quite often. Then most of them are satisfied but obviously, they're in a critical part of their lives, really. So I'm just wondering, do we get proper feedback from them about how they felt the service served them, for want of a better way of doing it?
It's an area that we probably don't do enough of, because I think it is an area that we need to improve on, which is why it's in there that we do collect that information from people who've used the service about what we could do differently or better, or what's worked really well for them. So it is a gap, and it is something that we need to do. So we've recognised that, and it is in there to do. So what we've started doing is talking to the local authorities about how they do it. Years ago, we did previously do a post-service survey, if you like, but generally we only heard from people who were unhappy with the service because they didn't get what they wanted, or they didn't get it as quickly as they would like. So we're trying to look at different ways of doing it and see how the local authorities do that as well, and draw on that. But yes, it is an area that we need to develop.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Castle?
Yes, just a quick one. I noticed the armed forces are listed here as one of those areas concerned, but actually I think our provision for armed forces veterans is still outstanding. I would be aware if we had a problem that hasn't been dealt with effectively. I think we do have an excellent system, and it's quite separate to this in a way. We've got field workers that really does work. I've got a single Gold Award this year to those involved for our outstanding work. So I think it's here, but there is no problem that I would wish to bring to the attention of doing it well, better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things around the decision of asylum seekers. Do you find that it's more in urban areas where people are we quote the RSA. I'll just go through the questions again. The council stock is, you know, I'm pleased that it's really good, but we've got to be very mindful. Whether one's in Anakin, one's in Blythe, and for Ashington and outlying towns like that, they have to rely on the social housing, and there's concerns around the social housing. People come out of prison, dare I say it, you know, what I've been hearing is some stories around if you come out of prison, basically they apply for it, but they could be rehomed anywhere from Northumberland, Tyneside, and even down to the Middlesbrough. And ironically, they've got to get there down on their own steam without any costs, and they've just come out of prison, so that's a concern. And also vulnerable and 18-year-olds. The advice online is to ring 999 if you feel as though that you haven't got anywhere else to go to. I think that particular route is overstretched as it is. So we should, in theory, have, you know, the vulnerability for the under 18s. I totally get that, but it shouldn't be a 999 call. It should be a personal call to those. And the other question is around section 21. How does that affect your team and your delivery of the service? Thank you, Chair.
So just to answer those questions, yes, the asylum seekers are generally being placed in Blythe, Ashington, some Widdrington. There are some that are in Haltwhistle, actually, but generally, yes, in the southeast of the county. What that would normally mean then is they will present as homeless and prefer to stay in that area, which does put added demands on it. And they're supposed to get a 28-day notice. We've had challenges recently where we sometimes got 4 or 5 days notice and then people have been made homeless. So it is putting pressure on that sort of area. It's something that we're working very closely with mayors on, who deliver the service on behalf of the Home Office. It's not just our local authority that's having that issue, and it is something the North East Migration Partnership is championing for us with the Home Office. Because other local authorities are also seeing that problem, and the Migration Partnership be collating the data so they can assess that and assess the impact. But we're trying to do what we can around that. But yes, it is in the urban areas primarily. Yeah, absolutely. The social housing stock availability, as I sort of touched on, they do have an issue around volumes turnaround, but I know Benicia and Carl in particular are working very actively to get that improved. And we're working very closely with them and making them aware. And when we did raise the issue with them, they were able to bring forward some properties and try and prioritise that, although not all of them. So they're very open to talking to us about it when we highlight the problem with them. So we're in an active conversation with them. The prison offer is often a challenge, because of the nature of some of the offences when people are leaving and the risk assessments around that. The probation service are very soon to bring online a programme where they will accommodate people for 84 days when they come out of prison to help them then move on to more settled accommodation. And they're sourcing properties. It's all somebody will remember the old bail accommodation support service. It's another reiteration or iteration of that. So that will help in some regard. But I think often there is a challenge with prison leavers about where we can place them safely for themselves and for other people. So that we don't always have the answer, if I'm honest, on that one, but we'll certainly do our best. Young people, certainly 17 and 18-year-olds, work very closely with children's services around those young people. I wasn't aware that there's something that says to dial 999, Brian, so I'll have a look at that and see what we can do around prioritising. But we do try to safeguard our young people as much as possible. But I'll certainly look into that. And the Section 21 notices, I think they're an ongoing issue. We are seeing, because of the effect on mortgage increases on property owners, we are seeing that with private landlords that they're actually choosing to dispose of their properties. The local housing authority allowance rates don't match what rent often has to be now. So there's that gap that the tenant can't afford to fill. So that is becoming more of a challenge as well. What we are trying to do to try and get people into private properties and sustain tenancies is develop an insurance product where we as a council will pay the insurance premium that safeguards rent, any non-payment of rent or damage, which was just agreed at strategic leadership team yesterday that we develop that and look into that product. So I'm hopeful that that will come forward soon. That might help open up the private, but also give landlords some sort of security around taking somebody in where they might think, well, if I don't pay the rent, I can't afford to do this. But Section 21s are something that we're very mindful of as well. It's just the current economic climate does have that, will have that impact on it as well.
Councillor Gallagher, do you want?
Can I just come back on section 21? As I was reading online, it was basically saying that all the certificates are not in place, which a lot of the time it's not around, you know, the value of the house and energy factors and things like that. That actually anybody that's been served to section 21 can be in that property for 6 months and then appeal. And the other thing that I was going to come back on about the young people under 18 or 18 and under, if we could look at other authorities and their advice, because ours seems to be a bit bland, and I think it should be. Thank you.
Certainly, I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If I just say, before the meeting started, I've just happened to say to Councillor Reid that there's a question at full council about voids. So there'll be the latest up-to-date information on that. And on the asylum seekers, yes, we talked about the Syrians and the Afghans. Most of them are in the southeast of the county because they needed easy access to mosques and halal food. But the Ukrainians are more spread all over the county. In fact, I think Hexham's quite a hot spot for Ukrainians. We've got some in my local village, Rothbury, and because of various different reasons, especially religion, the Ukrainians are spread all over the county. Julie mentioned something quite important there. That just yesterday at SLT, on the back of helping to get Ukrainians moved on in the private sector, we're looking at a private rental insurance guarantor scheme. Early days, but looked at different options. So this insurance scheme is the one that suits this council the best. It doesn't put any financial risk, but that would be for everybody, not just Ukrainians. It was a meeting with Ukrainians that brought this about. So that's a very important thing that we'll be looking at in the future, or you'll be looking at in the future probably.
Thank you. Nick.
Thank you. Noticed that there are quite a lot of empty boxes in the action plan, but Councillor Horgan has to explain that this is early days, it's quite a new action plan. So that explains, I think, why the progression column and the date of completion column is often empty. But what about the other columns, the key activities and the responsible department? If those boxes are empty, does that mean that key activities haven't been determined yet? And if responsible department column is empty, does that mean that no responsible department has been determined yet?
Could you refer, because the copy I've got has got them all filled in. For the key activities and milestones and the responsible department and agency, that does seem to be on there. So I apologise if the wrong version has been circulated.
We've had a look at the you've got, see matches what you've got.
Right, okay, I'll recirculate, I'll make sure you've got the correct version.
Thank you.
Yeah, for some reason that's not the,
Yeah, I thought there were some boxes that would be.
Yeah. I don't know if that, the pre-version's been loaded onto Modern Document and I haven't updated that correctly, so I apologise if that's the case.
Share that around the group and
Yeah,
get the
absolutely,
updated
that'd
information.
be around my part and my innocence around Modern Document, so I do apologise. So that's,
It's good to hear it's,
Yeah,
so,
can do that.
Can I also ask a couple of quick questions? One is, you're talking about working alongside landlords at one point in the action plan. I'd like to know how you identify the landlords and contact them. Also, under the data, feedback and evidence section, it mentions a pilot. It says pilot implemented to be reviewed in January 2024. I'd be interested to know a bit more about that pilot.
right, okay. The landlords, what we're doing is, part of my remit is also the private sector housing team. So we have a really good relationship with the core group of landlords. But what we're trying to do is actively recruit more landlords into that through the offer of the accreditation and different incentives. And so we do active marketing through that team, and there's information on the website as well. And often, if an individual who is homeless or at risk of homeless identifies a landlord, they'll bring that landlord to us, and we'll then have that conversation. So it's a joint initiative between the landlord contacting us, contacting them, and we use the tenant to help us with that. So we're trying to grow that network as much as we can, and keep them involved in that. Sorry, what was the other point there?
I'll just, it mentions a pilot. This is under the data feedback and evidence role of the table, which is under the providing early intervention priority. And it says a pilot is to be implemented to be reviewed in January 2024, but it doesn't give any more information on what that pilot involved.
What page was that, Nick?
So it's page 26 at the top of page 26. Of our agenda.
The Department of Priority 2.
Yeah.
This was a pilot that was initiated within the Homelessness and Housing Options team itself. And what this is that the team manager there with the two senior officers are collating information and data from the officers as they are working, and to see how they can see where the demand's coming in, how we better manage it, what sort of queries are we getting, and using an analysis of that data. It includes information around domestic abuse and where people are moving on through that. So the team sessions that are referred to on there is really a trial within that team to see how we better collect and analyse the data to see how that can be wider, then shared wider. So it's just an in-team thing. But we're hoping that the outcome of that sort of analysis within the team will help better inform how we report on the data and also collect the data. So we can sort of see what gaps there are, but also then inform us where the gaps are in the provision of the service, really.
Thank you. That's right.
Councillor Cass.
Yes, I haven't gone too long with this, but you raised the challenge. It's quite a sensitive and important subject. This is a question and a bit of a comment about allocating properties to persons with, shall we say, criminal records and behaviour. It's a very sensitive issue, and without saying too much, as ward members, if you get involved in a case like this, you find that the likes of, shall we say, Riverside Housing got nothing to do with Northumberland. They're based in Durham, as I recall. So the amount of influence we have, is it anything like sufficient to actually ensure that we have the policy right? Because I'm afraid, without going into any details, I can find there are examples in my ward where it hasn't been got right. It's been got very wrong, and yet I don't know quite what I can do about it, because they share the home finder service. But we don't seem to have, do you think, a sufficient degree of influence over social landlords?
Probably not, councillor, to be fair, because they can use their own. We have a common allocation policy, but really they can assess somebody under their own, within their own criteria, and therefore place somebody if they feel that they are suitable or fit their criteria. So the common allocation policy gives as an umbrella, but within that, the social housing landlords could have their own criteria that of people they will accept or not accept. So
home finder has limits, sorry to interrupt you, the strict limits of what home finder can actually be expected to manage.
Yeah, because home finder is a partnership, really. The council hosts the system and does the administration around the system. But say if Riverside, Benicia or Carbon advertise their properties on there and use the system to do that, they can apply their criteria about who they then accept from the shortlist. Now, really, the applications are all assessed under the common allocation policy, and so you have commonality of band and an assessment of the banding. But what it does mean is that, like for example, Benicia may have an exclusion in a certain area. They would say, right, we're not going to place somebody there because we don't want it to affect the community. They have like the safer neighbourhoods type of it. So it's, you know, they have their own specific criteria as social landlords, which we can discuss with them, but we can't force them to accept what we.
I see. I guess we comment, I wish it was more successful than it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Deal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. And can I just say one more thing about the Ukrainian position? I'm glad you're looking at that because that's one of the things that came up. So that I was asked to be a guarantor because I hadn't worked for long enough and I hadn't paid enough. So there's an awful lot more in that than just actually financial background, etc. So I'm glad you're looking at that. I do feel that actually the homeless numbers probably are larger than we would like to admit. Because, for instance, families who are living in domestic abuse situations have nowhere to go in some cases. I have young parents with children who actually stay with their grandparents. They're not homeless, but actually if they didn't have, they would be. So there's an awful lot of, you know, and basically it's more housing is required, more social housing is required. And that's just the build up of the whole thing. So I just think you do a tremendous job, but it's a very difficult area. And I'd like to thank you because part of the things I've had quite a bit to deal with, most of it because people can't pay their rent or actually falling back with their mortgages and things like that. And that actually creates an environment that's not good for children to be brought up in because everybody's concerned and there's all kinds of things start coming on. So I think we're going to see more, but the more the work you're doing is really helpful and thank you for ATM and understand. I now know where to go when I want any further, but thank you.
Not far, not too long.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. There. And again, thank you for the report, it's really good, and we've had a lot of questions around it. The one thing we haven't touched on is the rough sleeper strategy. We've just talked about property rents, section 21. And I was just wondering, you know, has OSC got any new ways of delivering the frontline services? Basically on a past tense experience, because to be quite honest, over the last few years, it hasn't been that good for it to identify the rough sleeper.
It's an ongoing issue, certainly. I mean, we do commission a homelessness response service with Changing Lives, but the funding that we got for that from government under the Rough Sleeping Initiative was limited. So we have commissioned that, but it's Changing Lives, I think, have the challenge of recruiting people into the roles to help us deliver. But we do commission that. And we also have a Somewhere Safe to Stay project, which is if somebody's identified as rough sleeping, we can place them overnight to then, so they're not sleeping on the streets, to then safely move them through that. That service is due to be recommissioned in August next year, so we will be going through another procurement process, and that will be identifying the funding to do that. We also utilise Ken McDonald, who a lot of you will know through the Tips Aroma Traveller Liaison. He helps with unauthorised encampments and that which can often be rough sleepers. So he will help liaise with the homelessness and housing options team and do an initial visit if the homelessness response service isn't available. But I have to say it is a low number of officers that we've got to respond to it. With again challenges about where we can place people safely. We do still have a couple of people who actively live rough and want to, but we are starting to see a few more sort of emerge, and I think there's an emerging issue in Hexham on Tyne Green where there seems to be a few tents starting to congregate, which unfortunately doesn't fall within the powers that Ken's got to move them on. And they're also, some of them are known to the service or are from out of county that we don't have a statutory duty around them. So there are sort of different things that are emerging and different patterns that are emerging around rough sleepers. We do have the regular counts and we're starting to see numbers creep up. And Councillor Dale's absolutely right. We have the hidden homeless numbers that really is always an ongoing problem to identify. But it does come down to resilience, and we're trying to commission where we can and use officers more interestingly, if you like, in different ways to help us meet what we need to do. But I think there's always capacity for us to do more if we can get funding from grants or whatever in, and do something a little bit differently and share work with partners. Because often partners are key to helping with to do whatever. But yes, it is something that's starting to, it's not a huge number still when we report in from the counts. We're not looking at huge numbers, but we're starting to see it creep up. So it's just something that we need to be mindful of.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's great. Well, if we have no further questions, thank you very much for the report. And I'm sure we'll all agree that, you know, if you're in that position, it's a vital service and you know, thank you for the update.
I do apologise about the action plan. I will get that circulated to everybody.
Great. And if you want to, action, so after approve the recommendation, so it's recommended that the committee note the contents of the report and updates regarding actions that have been taken to meet the priorities identified to support our residents who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Is that all agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Justin, keep you back. Great, moving on. 5.2 is an update on the implementation of Fix My Street. We have Councillor Riddle, Chris Westerby and David Lawks here. So over to Councillor Riddle to open up.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to be here today to introduce this report. It's almost 5 months to the day since the soft launch of this new system. I would say that firstly, I think it's been a resounding success. It's obviously had one or two very minor teething issues to start with, but I think it's actually a great improvement and something that the public have welcomed. Certainly welcome it because they're using it. We know that by the figures that's being reported, something that we didn't know before. Chris Westerby now actually tell you the data in seconds. It would take them at least a week to find out before. So, you know, it's streamlining our systems, it's making the workforce more efficient. And it's actually, the main benefit I think is that when somebody reports something, they're getting timely updates of what's actually happening until something is closed on. And I think that's, you know, got to be welcomed everywhere, really. You know, there's nothing more annoying than making a complaint somewhere and not hearing whether something's been done about it. So Chris is here with all the details, of course, if there's any detailed questions, but I'm very, very pleased with the way things are going. There are one or two still developments that we've got in place, but Chris can tell you all about those as well.
Great, thank you, John. David or Chris, you would like to?
Yeah, so up to date, we've had 20,000, just over 20,000 reports on Fix My Street since the launch, and around 17,000 those have had a response. So the work now is to look at trends and look at pressures on our sort of top fives at the minute. So top fives for the authority at this moment in time on Fix My Street are number one, roads. So that's generally the potholes, roads, potholes. Vegetation has been quite high since launch. And then we've got parks maintenance, which is again vegetation around parks maintenance, and then gullies. So they're in the top five. So we'll be looking at those, streamlining those processes. And the key thing is getting standard message across in line with policies. So we can get a consistent message across to all residents across the entire county. And we're saying the same thing, irrespective of where you are, you're getting the same answer across the council. But that's what we're working on. We're working with partners in countryside as well, just to try and streamline the countryside responses, and working with national parks. So if someone goes on a public right of way and it's within national parks boundary, they'll get the message back from national parks. Same with national highways. We've linked up on national highways and Fix My Street. Those reports are going direct, but the system allows So the A1 is a national highway part of the network. But we maintain the A69, which is national highways, but we've developed a system to allow residents or members to report on the A69, for example, around maintenance activities that we undertake as a council, but the national highways always get the update. And we've done the same for litter picking and grass on the A1. So the system allows you to tweak and refine and try and get the right message out to the customer at the end of the day. And what you'll see going forward is on each category, we'll start and develop policy information on there before a member of the public or a member registers. So like a gully response, there's the prescribed information on there before they make the report. So if the character is more than halfway across the road, footpaths, blocks and pedestrians having to walk on the road, it's telling people that's what our priority will be as a council. I think there's some education to do on gullies county-wide and what a gully, how a gully works. So I may try and get an update on our website in the future, just to send members of the club to how a gully works, essentially like a toilet. So there's always got to be water in it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's blocked if there's water in or it's half full. That's what we're finding. Feedback from staff. A key thing to remember with this, we brought two systems in across highways. So we brought Fix My Street in May, and we brought a new back office management system called Alloy in as well. So we've had a two-pronged attack in effect, but both systems talk to each other, and then we've got all the data connected. So there's a big thing across Northumberland at the minute about data and analysing data and connected data. This system does exactly that for us. From an operational point of view, or if you're running your own business, you're getting that data through, you're seeing where the demand is, you're seeing where the peaks are, you're seeing where we're not doing a very good job and where we can do better, because I'm not saying it's been a smooth journey over the last 5 months, but if you look at 20,000 reports, and I think I could say we're getting 20-25 county-wide, being Mr. Fix My Street for the county, everyone comes to me with, this hasn't been answered, or this hasn't been answered, this needs to be done a lot better. The feedback I've gotten is 20-25 major issues where we need to start changing things and looking at development. What the Alloy system does is allows staff highways inspectors to look at a Fix My Street report, and they've only got two clicks essentially to change the report and update the status. That then generates an automatic template back to the customer. So that's what we're looking at the minute. So you'll get a prescribed set of words. So for example, if there's a pothole on the road outside being registered through Fix My Street, the inspector will go and look at it. If it meets criteria, they'll instruct works. So they're just doing what they would do generally during the normal working day. They would create a job. When they're creating that job, that then sends an automatic template back to Fix My Street customer who has responded saying this will be repaired within 14, 28, 2 hours, whatever it's deemed to be. So the inspectors are doing more and getting through more reports, but the information they're getting back from the system is giving them a little bit more clarity on where they are, because previous systems, I couldn't have told you where what peaks are. I don't think as members, a lot of the members have worked with me for a number of years. I've been in highways for over 15 years across the entire county. And I couldn't get the data I'm getting today, well, in the last 15 years, to allow for one, managers to focus on resources and see where their pinch points are. Two, based on what we were doing on Friday, Saturday during the storm, the information we were getting, or I was getting, and David was getting in civil contingencies through using the system correctly, that was essential for us. So it's kind of had a bit of a test on Friday, Saturday with Storm Rebecca, and it's worked really, really well. What it also does, it connects up road closures and network information. So if you go on a road section, it'll tell you that the road's got roadworks on or is closed, which was good for us on Friday because we can automatically close roads, and that's updating sat navs, it's updating public, and it's updating that system. So yeah, we're just going to continue to look at where our issues are, get the standard templates up. We've just changed all the tree categories because trees was a pretty big issue when we first launched. But updating mapping databases as well, because this is all asset driven. So if we haven't got the asset or the asset information on there, we're updating our mapping system, the linking. So grass cutting's probably going to be a big one next year, where we'll be able to get the plot of grass on the system, and then we'll be able to manage that. Winter's coming up, so we're working on the winter process for winter services as we speak. What I'm hoping to do for winter is get the grid bins loaded up, only yellows this season. So we've got all our highways inspectors at the minute checking the state of grid bins, whether they've still got salt in them, if they're damaged, if the ID number's in. So we're just checking all that at the minute. And I'm hoping that's going to go live in the system. So when you request a grid bin replenishment, you'll click on the actual grid bin. But what information that gives us next summer is all the grid bins getting used. So we've got over 2,000 grid bins out there. We've got to replenish them and check them every year. Do we need to be checking every one or not they're getting used? Because we can digitally create a work and see how many times that grid bin's been replenished in the season. If everyone does a job, right? Humans are the big question mark.
Yeah. Okay, just to add perhaps to what Chris said as well, it's just worth noting that although highways have taken the lead, and Chris in particular really pushed this through, from identifying the system, right the way through the implementation. It's not just a highway system, it's neighbourhoods, people that grass cutting and litter and fly tipping and trees. It's public protection involved in terms of abandoned vehicles and sort of other aspects that they deal with. So it is that wider sort of corporate system. And I think we've really reached that really good tipping point where, having moved to alloy, which has been a massive improvement in terms of reporting, and its ability to then link with Fix My Street and then link with other systems like One Network, and it's all sort of able to pull those things together. And that's sort of going to be a focus, I think, going forward now is all of those other bits is sort of like improving those as well, so that all of those other things, data links together and all the systems link together. So it's a really important system, both for us and also for customer services. And that is a slight piece of work that we've still got to do, which is embedding this as a corporate system, and that it's sort of owned corporately with customer services and IT, etc., so that Chris doesn't just become having to do this day in, day out, night in, night out, and whatever, because he's also got an important job to do doing high risk delivery stuff as well. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, so there's kept in those other departments, but what the system gives you is an audit trail. So once we get that, we can see who's touched what throughout in timeline. So failure demand's another thing. What we'll be looking at. So we're working with the best team and the strategic team looking at failure demand, and then we've got, by Christmas we'll have all the processes for Fix My Street and how it should be delivered and how people should be doing it. So we'll have a full suite of documents ready just to go in. If Fix My Street happens or you're new to the department, that's how it operates. And then we're trying to link up like the building control and things like that, because everything comes to local services, and then we've got to try and find the answer. But what I'm doing is, when I'm delivering training to staff, is this: if the council can't answer the question from the member of the public, who can? That's the mentality we need to get across to officers, because it's pointless us just going, that's closed, and the member of the public sitting there, well, what do I do next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. We can open the floor to questions. Councillor Carr.
Chair, I think this is the best purchase this council, Fix My Street, has ever made. It's something that all residents across the whole of Northumberland can use in making and reporting issues. And I'm glad to hear that it's made it a more effective and simpler process. I think it's great that we've given something to people that they can see firsthand and use for us to help them. But some points of reference, and I would like to just clarify, though, Chair, if that's all right, and then some questions at your discrepancy. Thank you. On pages 32, on point 4.3, there's a mention of a Pro Gold package. Is there any difference in that to the Pro version? And on
page 34. Could you just help me with point 4.10, the references of the place cube system and what Power BI is?
Yeah. So Pro allows free system integrations. So when you buy the package, they'll offer you 3, 4, 5 system integrations. So we had Mayrise, which is a back office system. We had Alloy coming through, which is another back office system, and then we had PlaceView lined up, which is the new customer services system that IT implemented. So I had to make sure we future-proofed the system. So yeah, it was purchased through G Cloud Framework. Gold was an option that we didn't really need, and we managed to purchase it before the prices went up on G Cloud. So we saved money in that respect as well by getting, because it's a lot more expensive now, because they're recognising its potential.
Yeah. And then those two references, I just didn't understand, the place cube system and a Power BI, what are those?
PlaceView is the new back office customer system that's coming in. So this integrates into that. So that's customer service focused.
Okay.
So where we're hoping to get with PlaceView is, if it comes to customer services through the contact centre, they'll just have a link or Fix My Street and report. But where we really need to get to is that the customer's just got one page and everything's integrated, so they'll get an update through the one account system through PlaceView. So we'll be working with PlaceView in our IT team to develop that going forward. And Power BI is a Microsoft reporting system. So Power BI allows you to pull all the data out of the system for Fix My Street. So it makes sense.
Right.
And it's an auto-generated report, because what this does now, or what this is doing now, especially for highways area managers and neighbourhood services area managers, it's giving them an up-to-date picture straight away where the demands are, where the problems are. I want to take the human side out of it and just generate a report which is emailed to a manager on a Monday morning going, there you go, that's what you've had, that's your problems, that's what you've resolved, that's what you've closed, that's what you've got, that's what each inspector's still got outstanding. And that's what Power BI lets us do.
I've got other questions, Chair. I'm happy to give them to the members and come back to those. Can we come back to you?
Councillor Gale?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Steve. Can I just say, really, it's a progressive way forward. And I have to say thank you for all the work you've done. And I don't know how you take it all on board, because it opened a can of worms, not a can of worms particularly, but it just shows you the massive amount of work and people's expectation. And I think one of the things that we all have to understand is this is driven by policy, whether it's government policy or Northampton County Council policy, what we do. So if we want to improve something, then we maybe have to spend more money on it, all kinds of things like that. So in the end, this is quite good for us to look at budget setting as well, to think, well, actually, we need more money in here because we're not delivering what the people expect or want, or we need to change the policy, not government policy, obviously. So I think that to me will be very useful for looking forward to budget setting. One of the things I would like to say is that I actually we are living in an ageing generation, certainly in my area and beyond, sort of more the Hexham area. There's a lot of people are not getting onto the computer. And they won't, and you know, whatever you do, and we've got all this thing about railway tickets and everything else going on. So I do get a lot of people who ring me up, and I just do it for them because it's easier and quicker. At the present time, you must have got, I don't know how many means and ways of actually reporting things on the website, on the County Council website. So you've got Fix My Street, and then you've got another lengthy report where you can do this, that, and the other. I don't know how that all works in, or if that's actually making your job harder because people are still using the old way, instead of taking them all away, even Northern, whatever, all the things that are there, and just make sure that everybody goes through that one terminal. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that's where PlaceView comes in the new website. That's all being developed as well to try and.
So the whole lot of, because I mean, there's so much going on that people will just pick the easiest way, and if we've only got one route to go, which Fix My Street, which would be great. And the other one, which I'd like to say, is that I do have concerns about the highways it's not highways, actually the trees. Because we're getting an awful lot of people complaining about trees, and there are problems with outside back. There's all kinds of big problems. That is a problem in itself. And actually that's something that needs to be looked at separately, which I think Councillor Dodd wanted to,
Yeah.
but actually it's bigger because it's all about land ownership, etc., etc. But I think that maybe could come back. Chris, maybe you can come back and give us the figures on what you found out from Fix My Street.
On just trees generally.
Well, trees, yes, I mean, people will complain about in the park, for instance, the trees dying.
Yeah, we've changed the tree categories because we were getting so much demand on trees to try and say if it's sap or if it's blocking your phones, tech TV signal in the sky. It's not actually something we deal with.
No, BT, no,
Yeah.
or no, not them. No.
So we've done that, and trees with tree preservation orders on the trees on private property. So we split all those categories, and trees affecting streetlights is its own thing as well.
Mhm.
So we put trees affecting highway, but it's about language with this system. Does a member of the public know? Do you know what I mean? We're naming them because we're engineers. Does a member? That's why it's called drains, because people use gullies, and so it's trying to learn and educate through policy links, through what people understand is a drain, is a gully, is a highway, that sort of thing.
Can I just try and want to clarify, you've got 55 being completed, closed, and people email me and say, why have they closed it? Because I haven't done it, or whatever. So it's just actually the terminology of some of the words that are being used that might need to be clarified.
That was an education piece early on, because we were getting officers who just wanted it off and away. So they were just closing it. So we've gone back and just said, look, you're always going to investigate. So so you'll get that next stage. You're always going to be looking at it. So when I'm doing the training piece and working with staff, you always investigate, because you're always going to look at it and do something about it. Even though you'll know in the back of your head that it's not ours, or you'll have that local knowledge, but just change the state so that it looks like we've actually done something and looked at it. But it could be closed because it's nothing to do with us as well.
I think those terminologies need to be, because you get more people complaining about that hasn't been done. That's what I've had.
But
So
if I'm right in thinking that the policy is going to be linked to with the application,
Yeah.
the public should be better educated why we're closing something because it doesn't fit the
Yeah.
policy
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
forward. Is that right?
So for example, we'll take the good old pothole again. If an inspector's on site and it doesn't meet our actionable criteria, there'll be an automatic response, goes back to the member of the public saying it doesn't match our criteria of 40 millimetres or greater
Yeah.
and 300 millimetres in any one direction. So they're getting that now as a text or an email, which we've never had before. So through the system, we can educate, but we've kind of got to learn where the demand is as well when we've introduced it.
right, no, thank you for that.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Castle.
Yes, thank you. As you know, you kindly came to the local area council in the north and went through much of this with members, which was very useful, thank you, and it was a worthwhile exercise. One thing I found about this has actually, speaking for myself, and I suspect others, reduced the workload on members, because in the past, one was passing second-hand information from members of the public who'd seen something, but you hadn't. And therefore, you were sort of half second guessing what you'd got from members of the public and passing it to local services or highways, and it turned out not quite right. And therefore, it was always quicker to go look at yourself. But this actually, I say to people, well, you might as well report it directly yourself, because if you give it to me, I'm going to have to do the same thing, and I haven't seen it, and I don't know where it is. So I'm able to turn around, I found, to say there is a system, please come back if it's not working and tell me. But I think you'll find, and I have so far not had anybody come back and say, well, a waste of time that was, certainly not recently. So I think it is a good system and needs encouraging, and has the potential of reducing member workload and making the system more accurate. One little thing, I mentioned last time, toilets. Yes. Apparently, we'll look on the parks or something.
Yeah.
But I now see that under Fix My Street is toilets, and here's where they are. I've just had a look. I thought, oh, have you added something? I did not notice this before. So this is what it says. Come on, yes, Fix My Street, public toilets. But under that is you can do a map of public toilets maintained by us. Now, when you click it, it goes to a list. You can possibly actually send a report in about some defect. But surely you would intend Fix My Street itself to do that. So I thought some potential confusion.
Yeah, we just need to link it. We just need to link that up. We can do that. But I've had a word, because obviously toilets aren't mine.
No.
So we've discussed how they want to manage toilets going forward, so I'll have something in the next couple of weeks.
That's a work in progress.
Yeah, but I don't wanna make decisions for everybody.
No, I understand, but it is a regular thing. We can't get in, it's blocked, or the, you know.
Well, it's a regular thing.
Regular thing. Thanks very much. I'm very happy with the system.
Well, yeah, that's good, but a key thing is, if you log it for the public, they're not getting the updates and they'll not get the report.
Yeah.
The same way as they'll not, if they don't, we want people to create accounts so they get the reports and they get the updates from the council. They don't do that, they'll not necessarily get the right information back.
Yeah.
And then they'll not be able to open the system and look in their own account, and then they get the updates on the left-hand side of the
Absolutely,
system.
that's what I'm encouraging.
Yeah, so that's the way it should work.
As it uses not send time as well.
Yeah, well, it stops, yeah, it's, because the Fix My Streets are going direct to the officers who deal with that day in,
Yeah,
day out.
absolutely.
So you're not going to an area manager, you're not going to a team leader, you're going to the operational staff of work.
Absolutely, I as a councillor for many years, I'm still not absolutely certain who does what. If you know, when you get into certain areas, you find yourself up a blind alley. That's not the right officer, my goodness, but this works.
Complexity behind the system and all the work that goes in the background. You select a category, and that category goes to the individual.
Yeah.
And then it's backed up with a secondary email which goes to the area offices, so the admin team can manage it. I'm not fully confident they've automated the system, but that emergencies is like that, so emergencies still need that call through
That's different.
to make sure that the officer who's dealing with it, especially for winter and storms, is actually responding. Then what the officers did on the contact center, ring contact center out of hours, goes to fire service. Fire service will then call it through to the staff that's on the ground, but then they'll then log it on the system. So it's a secondary, so they're still logging all staff out of hours on the system, but that's not a public facing subject because we want to keep it internally, because it's out of hours, it's emergencies.
But an emergency will be at the judgment of the local member putting it out.
Yeah, but the emergency still needs a judgment of the member, the staff, the human being at the end.
Absolutely,
Is that really an emergency?
Thank you. Happy with that.
Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. On the whole, I've had quite a good experience with the system. I've reported a couple of things. One of the things I didn't get anything back, but somebody went out and fixed it, so I suppose that's better than getting something and saying we're not going to do anything about it. But I think what our problem will be at the end of all this is the management of expectations. I've got someone who reported quite a complicated thing that I've been aware of for years, and the highways have been aware of it for years. And it's going to take a lot of investment, a lot of public consultation, and a lot of work to solve the problem. But this person thought by putting it on Fix My Street, someone would come around and fix it straight away. So I think we just need to be aware that the technology is great, and we're identifying the places, and as people get used to using it, it'll get better. I mean, we've all had somebody complained about a tree from me, but the location of where they were when they reported the fault rather than where the overgrown tree was. So they got a message back to them that said, well, it's not our property, because it was there for room. So there's, there are bits, and that is about education. But I'm not sure how much we should be relying on the public to be educated over the system that we're using to fix. Is it their job to work out how the system works? Is it? If you see what I mean, we are asking, it's back to self-service, isn't it? It's like going to the supermarket now. You don't actually see anybody on a desk there. You do it yourself. And if you make a mistake, well, but for me, it's about managing expectations, particularly as I say, this thing that's come up over the past couple of days. This person is now contacting me saying, why haven't you done this? Well, I didn't know anything of, as councillors, we don't get a thing that pings to us saying one of your residents has complained about this.
Do you want that?
Well,
You can set the system up to do that, Jeff.
well, you know, maybe we should, but all I'm saying is,
Yeah.
you know, but knowing all of that, that doesn't help me or the resident or you. It's just one more thing that I am now worried that I've got 40 things come up. You know, and so how do I deal with that? Would I get into telling the resident, yes, I've been informed of this? Well, you know, then you're just putting layer upon layer upon layer. So the system, I think, is very good. I've found it very easy to use, and the people that I've advised to use it, I found it very easy to use. But on the periphery, there's these knotty things, and I'm not sure how we're ever going to be able to get around that. As I say, this thing that's come up over the past couple of days, I'm like, well, everybody knows that, but the person thought just by using Fix My Street, somebody be round there the next day, putting double yellow lines down and, you know, adding more street lights and changing the direction of the road, and, you know, all those things need to happen to fix this problem. So I just think there needs to be a management of expectations, you know, and perhaps there should be some way of differentiating between a systemic problem and there's a pothole and it meets the criteria, we're going to fix it. Or that tree is dangerous, it's coming down.
If I could
Rather than the last thing, Chair, sorry, and then I should shut up, I promise. What the other problem is, Councillor Dale kind of brought up is that we know we've got a massive problem with trees. That is, telling our staff that there are 250,000 trees need to be felled because they're all on the Fix My Street system ain't going to get 250,000 trees cut down unless the council permits the resources that's actually needed to solve this massive problem that we've got. So you might, I mean, it would be good to think that Fix My Street can inform the budget. And so actually, we've potholes under control. We've got far too much in that budget because Fix My Street tells us we've got money to fix 500,000, but actually there's only 250,000 being reported. So we can take the money out of there and deal with this massive problem that we've got with trees. Then it's only going to get worse. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to come?
I think we know that, you know, the tree ash dieback's a national problem.
Yeah.
It's not just a local problem.
Yeah.
I know that.
But it is a problem that's going to need to be addressed somewhere and sometime fairly soon, really. And, you know, the points you made about this information, this is information that we haven't actually had before. And now it does do exactly what you just said. It tells us whether we've got too much money in certain budgets and not enough in others. And it will be a very good tool for us as, you know, setting budgets as well. But, you know, like everything else, it's not a bottomless pit, is it? We've got to prioritise things. So, and as far as reporting goes, and different ways of reporting, my understanding is that if somebody rings the contact centre, the contact centre staff should be putting things straight onto Fix My Street as they take the message. So, you know, it's, you know, if you haven't got a smartphone, you haven't got a computer, if people ring the contact centre, they still get things straight onto Fix My Street.
Okay. And if I could comment from, I think it's really useful if a member of the public in my ward contacts me and I already know it's been logged on Fix My Street. Because I'm fully aware of the situation, leave it to run the process, and if the problem's still not fixed, then I can pick it up. And I think what Councillor Castle said was right, it's definitely helping me, you know, the typical, you're tagged in a post on Facebook, you know, you can just put the link to Fix My Street, and that's definitely taking the pressure off. That's me, so.
I'm just going to ask, and does it mean your the people with highways surveyed, they're gonna stop going round, or?
No,
No, I just because, you know, what you were saying, though, you know, the potholes, there's so many potholes, Fix My Street. I presume they will not be putting them on Fix My Street,
who?
the area managers who go around.
So there's local
We can-
inspector, just their annual run.
Yes.
We have got an option going forward, once we're comfortable, that if we complete a monthly cyclic inspection on the network, so they're just doing what they would normally do,
Yeah,
and they pick up an actionable defect, we can publish that on Fix My Street to tell a member of the public that we found it and we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, that's
But
it.
we're not there yet,
I know.
but the system can allow you to do that, and just on Jeff's point.
Yeah.
On trees, we are working a lot with countryside and trees, and there are some developments going to happen on the countryside. With back office and integration with the alloy system we've developed in highways, so we can work with trees, but we've split the categories. So we can define where the highways trees are a problem, or whether parks trees or countryside, so just to try and get that data on demand for trees.
Mhm.
But we're well aware, well, yeah, trees are a bit of an issue at the minute.
Which that information is going to be really useful for us going forward when we're looking at what Councillor Dodd's brought about last time.
We've just implemented a new document on the website, so all the trees requests go to a document on the website telling people what we do as far as trees are concerned, so that's just been updated. Well, last month.
Great. May I just quick comment here, because, remember, this is a scrutiny committee, but all members need to be really aware of how this is working, you not think, which is why I asked you to come out to the local area council.
In November, I'm doing a tour.
But you're doing the tour, so after that'll work well.
Right, Councillor Gallagher. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just want to take you back to the early days of this idea. This was Chris's dream. He did a lot of work on his own time, and this is something that people don't understand. He used to come to councillors as sounding barriers, myself being included. I think it's now become a nightmare for him, but that's another thing. It's a very successful project. And when we initially talked about this was just going to be highways. When Chris and I discussed it and looked to the idea of it, said this could be rolled out for county-wide. The reason why I bring that up now is that Fix My Street, if you ever go on one of your phones to try and look at it, it's just covered in circles, different colours, everything. And what I'm saying is it's very successful, and maybe an idea to split that up, to stick with just highways and possibly parks of greenery or anything like that. So that when people access it, it's very, very easy. I welcome the training. I think that the cards went before the horse, so we should have been really trained up to speed of where we are. The phones were a nightmare, and some elected members are still having problems with logging the system on their council phones, but they're getting it on their private phone. I'm one of those. I've just managed to get it on my council one now.
Right.
One of the things I want to come back, some of it's been covered. And when I've asked as a sounding barrier from other councillors, they would like to have that direct information as well. So that if a resident complains about something, that we're tagged into it. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, and I don't know if it's still happening, but early days, if somebody put a complaint in on Fix My Street, that one person was getting that reply back. And you might have another 5 people behind putting that same complaint in. But the one, because they couldn't access it, were coming back to the councillor, we didn't know anything about it, and we didn't know what the reply was. So to help the system go, maybe update the councillor, probably something similar to roadworks that we've got. I get roadworks for Blythe and back streets and Blythe. Too much information, that's information I don't need, but this information coming from Fix My Street would be more beneficial.
Yeah.
So we're not, and ironically, it all seems to come through on a Friday afternoon as well, but that's another thing. The other thing that I was going to bring up was it's the replies as well. People are some people, the complaints that I've had, they're not getting replies back from their initial inquiries. And the other thing is about the maps themselves. The maps on here are good, but they're condensed with complaints and issues and concerns. So maybe trying, I know it's colour coded, but the reality is it's maybe too much on a small map, because 9 times out of 10, people will complain via a phone, not via a laptop. I welcome the idea as well about the winter services, but same again, I just think that maybe that extra bit of information going on to this Fix My Street around winter services might be a bit too much as well. It's more information going on. We want to try and simplify it as well. The grid bins, one request I've got is that if grid bins maybe not be used, it's because the stuff in there isn't fit for purpose, and it needs, in the old ones back there, seemingly they used to empty those grid bins, and that used to go back onto the salt bins, on the salt heaps, and we get fresh stuff in there. Don't always think that because a grid bin's being emptied, that it's being utilised in that area, because we've got everybody county-wide will go along with a bucket or whatever else to get taken away. But as long as it's being used, I haven't got a problem. But, that doesn't mean to say that it's well used. And I agree with the standard messages, but I'm just more concerned that there's too much information there now. And you're talking about country parks, national thing, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. So try and dissect it, say, fix my street, fix my park, fix my whatever. And at least if you've got a concern about a tree, you go to the parks and you know it's a tree. So thank you, Chair.
So tags and the pins, you can eliminate the pins. There's an option just to knock all the pins off. So it clears the page up.
Right.
Second to that, pins are going to start coming off after a report's been fixed or closed after 10 working days. So that'll clear it up. So you'll only have the coloured ones where it's got action scheduled on green, which is we haven't done anything with it. So that's in development now. So it's tidier when you look at it. The winter link is only going to be a hyperlink to our policy on the website. So it's not going to give them a load of information when they look at it on their phone. It's just going to be a link. If you want more information, there you go. You can go to our website. And on the alerts message, I'm happy to stay after this and show people how to get the alerts on your wards. And they just come as an email, go, this is what's happened in your ward today.
But Chair, just to come on that, can I put a request in that the local LAC gets that information, and at least that way educate them?
I'm doing LACs next month.
Yeah.
So
I'll
LACs get that information. So, but every member or everyone with an account can either go by ward or by postcode on what they want. If it just puts a radius around the area or any updates, and that's sent. And then I've told towns and parish councils that they can get it embedded into their websites as well. So if they've got a website, you can put that into the front page so they can see what's happening in the parish.
I was coming back to Councillor Dale's point that when her residents are sometimes contacting her to put it online, we have to go with the weakest link.
Yeah.
So young whippersnappers know all about this, but older people may not. So
Yeah.
You can't call Councillor Dale a weakest link. No,
that's all about weather.
I just want to say, they don't have computers, some of these people,
Yeah.
and they are totally illiterate and bad enough, but they don't want to, and they don't want to take that extra step, whatever. And there's a lot of people like that.
I think that's it.
I think it's really important to get that message across that this system, we're not forcing people to use it. If they want to continue to contact the contact centre to report things, that's still available, because we are very aware, we don't want to put barriers to anybody. We want people to, if they see an issue, we want them to report it so we can deal with it, but they can still do that by all the methods that they've always used.
On the phone.
It's just they can use this system, and this system is actually more efficient for the long term, but we don't want to stop those other people reporting it if they need to.
Great, thank you. Councillor Clarty.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. I've actually got an email about Fix My Street just now, right? Just saying that there's certain things that isn't getting done, like the gullies aren't getting cleaned out anymore, which I didn't realise they weren't. Do you know what I mean? The work that Virgin Media's doing, I don't know if that's a way to report the damage that they do on Fix My Street. And when you're fixing the damage, apparently it's not really what you call the best quality. So what happens after, say, 12 months, and the quality that they've done has an impact on, say, the curbs start and drop more, the pavement slabs drop more? Do you just go back around and check this work or what?
On utilities, so there's a way to report on street works, so you can report, and they go direct to our street works team. And on street works general, where we've got contractors working on our network, depending on the depth of the excavation, there's a different guarantee period going on, and proactively our inspectors go out and do routine sample QA checks on the utility contractors.
I mean, this person, I haven't got a clue who he is, obviously one of my residents, he's obviously used Fix My Streets on numerous occasions. But the feedback, what he's writing, I'm just thinking, well, that's just some of the opposite of what I'm being told here.
Well, if you get us the contact details, and I can see exactly what's happening.
Certainly, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I forward this to you?
Yeah, no problem.
What was your name again?
Chris Westerby.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Morford.
Okay.
That's right. Under paragraph 4.4, it says that the initial scoping involved business readiness thinking. And I'm just curious about that.
So business readiness, so there's a lot of authorities, including Northumberland, have got a way of introducing things. I think Councillor Gallagher said it before, carpet force, of introducing systems and software and not giving key stakeholders within the business an opportunity to say what they want. So I didn't want to bring a system in and go, there you go, use it. But I think that's been beneficial now because everyone's been told use to Fix My Street. I've been here a while and I've never known the system being pushed as much. But what I did, I've got customer services in the room. It got everyone IT. It got neighbourhood services, countryside. It was an hour interview with key members of staff, just so that Fix My Street Society Works, who are a charity organisation who developed this, and ourselves, the opportunity to capture everything and capture the demand, or try and map out previous demand and sort of top 50 items that the council's faced. So we got those categories right in the initial step, and then just managed officers' expectation through the implementation process, because it was a tight 10-week delivery to get the system up and running.
And the interview was you and the team getting internal departments to get everyone.
It was us ensuring that everyone knew what was coming and everyone was ready and linked and knew what the system could do.
Thanks. Paragraph 4.6, and it says that where possible, once the back office system was updated, it would automatically update Fix My Street.
Yeah.
How often is it possible? How often is the back office system updating Fix My Street successfully?
So at the minute, it's automatic for highways because we use Alloy, like I mentioned before. That's the back office we're referring to. So Alloy is a new system, but that allows system integration with anything, which is opening up a lot of stuff we can do regarding grid bins and grid and things like that. But other departments aren't on there. So we're trying to bring other departments on board. Countryside would be the first one with trees and things like that to get the same system that the highways inspectors have got, where they're just using one system, but it's updating multiple.
So you're working on it?
Yeah. Street lighting as well.
Yeah, and other parts of the council, I think almost going back to LGR, that you know, it's pulling together still all that data onto digital systems. Of all of the grass, all of the thousands and thousands of acres of grass that we've cut, you know, all of that sort of data, all of the rights of way network. It's getting that all into that sort of digital systems as well, so that it can just integrate straight from the back office.
Yeah, great. In terms of the complaints I've had about Fix My Street, we've covered emails saying the problem's fixed when it isn't. But also emails asking if the problem is fixed seem to annoy people. I think you're probably aware of that already.
Yeah, does it annoy people?
Yeah.
From your side?
Yeah, because they never told us fixed, not asked if it's fixed.
Are you've been asked if it's still open? So it's like a survey that comes to the, for them to report them. That's what the system, that's automatic from the system, but it's.
I think something to bear in mind that, I don't find it helpful when I get an
Right.
email, and I've heard that other people don't as well,
Right.
so something to be aware of. And then the third thing was, the app currently isn't letting me, use my current position. It says, something about being declined, and it's happening to other people as well. Is that something you were aware of?
No, what browser are you, do you?
It's Safari on iPhone.
Because we use Edge, we recommend using Microsoft Edge as a browser. But I'll send you the actual installation instructions. I've got it all documented. I'll send it in.
Okay, thanks. I think I might have Edge, so I'll try it on Edge, but be nice if it worked just as well on all browsers.
Yeah. So what's it?
I've got it
Right, just goes after you.
Yeah. I did write it down.
Have you got?
That's useful to know though, so yeah, you can share it with Chris afterwards.
So with the finally, here we are. It says, you declined. Please fill in the box above, which is where you put the postcode. You declined. Yeah. The final question was just a quick one about the monitoring report. It says that today's Fix My Street report will contain a link to the network management plan and road hierarchy. I think that's possibly in relation to a question or suggestion that was made at the last scrutiny meeting, but I'm not sure if the report does. Does that make sense to anyone? I'm getting blank looks.
Say that again, sorry.
The monitoring report says that today's Fix My Street report would contain links to the network management plan and road hierarchy. I just wanted to. I think someone had.
I think that I brought that up as a matter of people explaining what the hierarchy or what it is when you're doing profit, whatever, so many government key performance indicators basically between, small.
Yeah, but response times and.
Yeah.
But I think, have I not shared a copy of our highways inspection manual in the past?
Past, not sure.
Right, we have to reshare that, but that's got where we do things, why we do them, depending on the category. So A-class roads, so A-class roads, we inspect monthly. And more response times will differ from a C road.
That's shared through Nicola and the group.
You can do, it's out there, it's all,
That would be helpful.
I'll share it, but we are revising that based on all the information we're getting from Fix My Street, and that's gonna be processes and how we're gonna focus on quality now, because we've got the systems coming back through. So the tech we've got now and the data we're getting now allows us to take a live feed of every completed reactive maintenance piece of work. So we get live photographs back constantly, so we can focus on QA. But I'll send you the manual as it is at the minute.
Great, thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Just on the back of that, the offer by Nick there for, let's say, more details of logging on, could that not be automatically sent to all county councillors?
Good.
Just in front of any training that you're gonna have, at least it'll save you a lot.
I'll send you through, but it is within the help section on the Fix My Street website as well.
The other question I was gonna ask on the back of Councillor Carty was it the utilities and highway repairs that are done on the way on paths or highways. Are they still done by 2 inspectors, or is it done by the 1 inspector that just covers those areas? Because it's not that long ago I called one of the highway inspectors to look at a piece of work that the water board had done, and he said it wasn't his inspection. So maybe something to clear up. I think that if we've got a highways inspector in one area, he should be able to do the 2 rather than rely on somebody else.
They're 2 separate roles. You've got highway inspector, you've got streetworks inspectors. So we've got 3 streetworks inspectors and a senior streetworks inspector who cover the county, and they look at all of the utility works that are going on a random survey basis, to make sure that what's being done accords with the specification, which is a national specification of what the repairs have to do.
The reason why I bring that on the back of Councillor Carty is that I had an issue along a street in my ward. I asked the street inspector to look at it, and he said it wasn't his job, it would be somebody else's. even though there was a fault there and the problem. So maybe we charge the street inspector that if he's not going to do it, it's going to be utilities, that he informs the utilities inspector, because 3 utility inspectors for the whole of Northumberland. If you think of all the work that gets done, then they're never going to catch up. So it's work in partnership.
Yeah, but it's also using the intelligence that we're getting both from Fix My Street and from other sources as well to go and target the areas where there are issues.
Anything they get now as a highways inspector, and it refers, if it is being miscategorized in a road or something and it's a utility, they can automatically reassign the street works. So that's linked up now. It never has been.
Right.
But, and that's the same with everything. So if it's a double yellow line or marking scheme that was proposed, that goes to highways program. So that's the inspector governs where it goes to, if it originates from Fix My Street on their categories. So what I've tried to do is just try and link everything up this.
Yeah.
Where we can, so that if a restatement in Ashen's failed, even this that gets it, looks at it, he can reassign it to streetworks and get the relevant streetworks inspector out. And you've got that always.
It never did happen that way, but it's good.
Okay, but that way, yeah.
Thank you.
We've got councillor Carr and then councillor Dale.
The other question I was going to ask, Chair, was in Blythe, we've got like a online data signal to receive all the reports, and now we're seeing like a sea of yellow reports across Blythe. So I'm wondering if there was like a difference on the effectiveness in rural areas across Northumberland, where are you seeing like a difference, or is what people reporting issues and reporting in rural areas up north and west?
I'm seeing it different every ward and every area. That's a good point, actually. That's what we're starting to see. We're starting to see different priorities in different geographical areas, which we've got that information coming through now. So, and northern area, to like the shrubs cut back and nice and tidy, Cramerton loves grass. So we've got those different categories coming through as trends. So yeah, we've got all that there.
I mean, in terms of like, I think the question was more like on the, if people are having issues reporting on their phones because of the data signal, which I know really the council issue, it's more the data provider themselves, like the networks. But it's just, if you guys have any messages yourself saying I can't use the app because of my signal.
Yeah. We've had feedback from the Ramblers Association, which we've just done some work on. But the beauty of this is that you can report offline. And as long as you've got an account, if you lose signal, you can report offline, and then once you've got signal again,
that's good.
They'll upload the report.
Yeah, so if you go somewhere like with a public access network, you can log your report then once you connect to the network.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Dale.
Just one last week, are you getting any further forward with the 0345 number for emergency?
Nope.
Right, it is, I'm saying it's not.
I've read the question.
It's not your
But
point, but can I just say that it does say an emergency is use 0345. I did that, and by the time I'd gone through number 1, because you have to press all the buttons, the next one, and then sit your number 18 in the queue. And I thought, right, shall I ring the police? But in the end, so it's just actually, it's actually people picking that up saying, might as well dial, and then not getting the response that they think they should get.
Yeah.
So whether that's worth or dealing with it or looking at another way of actually putting that in, because, if people do, and there is a real issue, then it could cause a massive concern to county council.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get over that. I can understand the fire at night, it's fine.
Yeah.
Go straight to, just during the day and having that on the WhatsApp, just what, on the fact Fix My Street, whether it's the right thing to do, I don't know.
It's very much a question for sort of customer services in terms of resource and that number, getting answered on emergencies, etc.
It's changing, it's saying it's an emergency, number 1. Yeah.
If I could comment, and I used it twice during the last storm. Once was about 6:30 at night. So extra staff had been brought in because the lady that answered told me because of the storm, and it was quite quick. The second time was fire and rescue, and they were very efficient as well. So I was pleasantly surprised how the phone number system worked.
I think this was during the day.
During the day, I've never used it.
You've got to remember, a customer service advisor could be on a road issue or a street, and then on council tax, they're all, you know,
Yeah,
you sit in the customer services room and see how many different situations a handler will face in a 10-minute period. But it's also that interpretation of what's an emergency to some people.
Yeah.
So if we give people an option, press start for an emergency,
Everybody's pressing that. Well, that's great. Well, thank you
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much
yeah.
to John and officers. We've kind of went right the way through that. Personally, I do have to say, I found it very positive. Fixmer Street residents have said how positive it was. And, you know, I think any communication that we have back to residents is a good one, even if it's not the answer they want to hear, but at least they're getting told now. I think that is great. John, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, just, you know, to thank the scrutiny members for your feedback today, you know, it's always useful to hear things. And really to thank Chris, because he's been the guru behind this, he's the one that's done all the donkey work, and, you know, just to remind members again that, you know, we're only 4.5 months into the official launch of it, and, you know, I think it's gone exceedingly well. Yes, there are little tweaks that we need to get right and things, but, you know, it's work in progress, and I think it is definitely the way forward.
So the committee are recommended to note the progress that has been made on the development and implementation of Fixmer Street system. Are we all agreed?
Yeah.
100%. So moving on to item number 6, which is the Community Interface Overview and Scrutiny Committee Monitoring Report, page 37.
Yeah, the list of items to put in the work program remains quite long, but we're all working through them and I regularly remind officers to come back to me to actually updates to the reviews. But you can see them, certainly, the next meeting. You're busy and you're all busy in the next meeting. So I can also just say, just to clarify the confusion is that there are a number of issues that arise from meetings that we don't necessarily put on the work program, but there are questions that don't always get answered and they always fix them up in minutes. When she does that, we do go through them and we do try and make sure that we go back to officers between meetings to try and get the information we've requested, so that, and always say to officers that you possibly do that before the next week, because they're always about that. So we always try and get as much information between meetings as we can. We can't always do that because of the nature of some, you know, some of the information that we require. We always endeavour to do that. And I think you've had a couple of emails. I think I sent one a week before, and I sent an email yesterday from Open Reach. So we do pick up the issues areas between meetings and do our best in trying to.
Thank you for your report on the trees from the beat. I can't remember.
Which.
Yeah, Openreach. I'm having a fight with them already, so it's nice to hear. Thank you.
And item number 7, is there any urgent business? Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.